The second annual JNS.org International Policy Summit. What an event. 3 days in Jerusalem, the last 2 years, at the beautiful Waldorf Astoria Hotel where I stayed this time. And a list of speakers that included me, Israeli Ambassador Mike Huckabee, the great one Mark Levin, Bibi. In fact, the first night, that Sunday night, the four of us all spoke. Me, Levin, Huckabee, and Bibi. I saw him that night because the CEO of JNS.org, who's now been on this show since October 9th of 2023, nearly 200 times, Alex Traiman, has become a dear friend, really family at this point, him and his lovely wife, Tzippi. Put me right there in the front row and had a chance to see Bibi and Sarah. I love them. I don't go to the media in the United States or horrible podcasters like Tucker Carlson or even the vice president to form an opinion about Bibi. I know better because I go there and I speak to him and people that know him and Israelis in the streets and even every now and then a Palestinian. And I know they're talking about Mamdani and Bibi every day, not just here in Brooklyn or Manhattan, but in Israel too. So with that said, we go live to Jerusalem once again from my dear friend Alex Traiman. Alex, good Wednesday afternoon for you. How are you, buddy?
Good morning, Sid. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I know that you heard me and Bibi. It ended up in just about every Israeli publication. It was like 9 different ones, led by you, of course. You're the best, that actually transcribed that interview. And I believe that was kind of the catalyst for what we see in the last 9 days, which is the back and forth between Mamdani and Bibi and Trump getting involved and all that. So how often do you guys in Israel, how much time do you spend talking about Bibi and Mamdani?
Well, we talked a lot about Mamdani, I think more because of what's going on with the Jewish communities in New York and the feeling that it's no longer as safe as it used to be a Jew in the city. And we always thought that at least the authorities were with us. And now we feel for the first time that the authorities are not with us. You know, with regard to whether Netanyahu can come to the UN, that's not the first thing on Israelis' minds. But as the president said, and as the American ambassador to the United Nations said, you know, this is political theater, and the mayor of New York has no way to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu if he comes to New York to the United Nations.
And as Bibi said to me, I'm not afraid. I'm not nervous. I don't care. I mean, this guy's been dealing with some serious stuff. He gets as many, if not more, death threats than President Trump gets, right? And he's been fighting a war every day, basically, for his whole reign as prime minister in Israel. So when some little punk-ass bitch, you know, this little guy that can't even lift 100 pounds off of a bench starts to, I guess, threaten Bibi Netanyahu, for Bibi, that's laughable, right?
Yeah, you know, Bibi's running the affairs of state over here. He's fighting a war on 7 fronts. You know, the war continues. Things can explode between Israel and Iran any second at this point. You see that Israel's negotiating with Lebanon and still operating in southern Lebanon, still operating in Gaza. You know, so I think that Mamdani is a bit of a sideshow. But again, it's very disappointing, I think, to Israelis and to the Jews in New York that this is now the mayor. It's a very big degradation over what the situation was previously.
And you would never go, Alex Traiman. You would never go because he hates us and he hates the country. I know he does. But wouldn't it be nice if Bibi just came out today and said, and oh, by the way, if Mamdani ever sets foot in Tel Aviv, we're going to arrest him. I mean, you guys can't do it either. You got no jurisdiction, just like Mamdani doesn't. But why not return the favor? Hey, Mamdani, if you ever end up in Israel for some reason, we're going to arrest you. How about that?
Well, we certainly don't have to grant him a visa.
Right.
That's for sure.
Right. And you shouldn't do that. That's true. You know, one thing that I wanted to touch on you with was a lot of the social influencers here, some of which I like, some of which I think are kind of played out at this point. But they've been talking about this clavicular guy. You know who he is?
Yep.
He was even on Sean Hannity's show last night. And some of the influencers here have even gone further than clavicular and said, hey, listen, if Nick Fuentes, who is a raging anti-Semite, he appreciates Hitler. He has said that time and time again. If Nick Fuentes wants to go to Israel, I'd accompany him. This is our social influencers, and they've come under fire, and they're kind of firing back at people like me. I don't want to hear that. I don't think Israel should welcome Clavicular or Nick Fuentes. It's not our job to convince all these hateful people that we're good people. They know at this point. They don't care. What are your thoughts on this new surge of influencers trying to convince all these haters that we're not such bad people?
Well, the problem here is they've got so many influencers that are out there trying to undermine the U.S.-Israel relationship, which has been, one of the strongest relationships between both countries. Israel is such an important ally to the United States, and obviously the United States is the most important ally to Israel. And you have all these influencers who are trying to undermine this relationship. And then on the flip side, you've got Israeli organizations and other influencers trying to bring these influencers over. But it's a real, I guess the shame is not even the right word, just to say this is the state of affairs now, that these influencers are being paid so much attention to, and people are forming their opinions on what people that really have absolutely no qualifications whatsoever to weigh in.
Zero. And to be honest, the one that really bothered me was Emily Austin, and I love her and I love her mom and dad, but come on, Emily. I know Savetsky did it and others, but no, they're not welcome. We don't want them. We're not out there every day trying to conform people, trying to, change the way they are. They shouldn't be in Israel. That's the bottom line. We don't want them there. They shouldn't be there. Let me get to this Lebanon-Israel deal. The framework is in place. We even talked the last couple of days about these, I guess they're calling them pilot safe zones. What are your thoughts moving forward with this possible peace deal between Israel and Lebanon?
Well, because Israel attacked Iran and because Israel did such a great job to file down Hezbollah's capabilities, it actually created an amazing window of opportunity whereby the government of Lebanon, which is made up of multiple factions, including Christians, and the president, Joseph Aoun, is a Christian. You have Sunnis, and the prime minister of Lebanon is a Sunni. The speaker of the Lebanese parliament is a Shiite Muslim who's affiliated with Hezbollah.
And by the way, the president you just talked about was with President Trump at the White House yesterday.
Correct. But now you have a circumstance whereby the government sees that Hezbollah is on the ropes, and they want help to try to file them down further. And they want to do it in cooperation with Israel. So, Israel right now controls several miles into Lebanese territory. They took all the land up to the Litani River, which is a sort of natural border between Israel and northern Lebanon, and they went even a little bit further. So now they've announced that they will retreat slightly out of two specific pilot zones to see if the Lebanese armed forces, which the President Aoun spoke so importantly about yesterday with Trump, if they can restore order in those places. If they can, you might see over time a phased withdrawal by Israel and the IDF, just as long as they can be sure that Hezbollah is not going to come in and reconstitute the territory. And what ultimately could happen is a normalization, a peace agreement between Israel and Lebanon, which would be, I think, a very important step for the region, and it's a major blow to Iran and its terror network.
100%. So we mentioned President Trump, and we've had these discussions, even dating back to when I was in Israel 3 weeks ago, that President Trump went from the most popular man in Israel, even much more popular than Bibi, to a guy that was underwater. I mean, a lot of Israelis, were angry. The way he talked about Bibi, the way he talked about Israel, seemingly sided with J.D. Vance, not blowing the doors off Iran, let him kind of stick around with the opportunity to one day eliminate Israel. A lot of negative talk about Trump. I told you this, Alex. From the moment I landed, the 8 days I was there, the one question I was asked by Israeli citizens, people walking in the street, was, what happened to your guy? And I would say, listen, I said this on stage, you know that. Al Jazeera played it. Don't you dare lose hope in President Trump. I said that right there on stage. At the end of the day, he's still our best friend. And has he not proven that once again the last couple of days?
Yeah, I think Israelis can get over the bombastic talk. The president can say one day how much he loves Bibi, the next day how difficult he thinks he is. But that's not what Israelis are going to judge the president on. They're going to judge him on actions. And I think Israelis were very disappointed that he allowed J.D. Vance to try to negotiate this MOU, which Israelis correctly believed wasn't going to go anywhere. And now if President Trump will take up arms and finish the job, then I think Israelis are going to view him quite favorably once again.
Alex Traiman, the CEO of JNS.org, just one of the best people God ever created, okay? Just trust me. And this guy wears a yarmulke in the streets of New York. He's a real badass. You know, you mentioned J.D. Vance, and I'm on record many times. I'm sure I'll get back to the president, but I just saw the president Saturday, and he still loves me. I don't like J.D. Vance even a little. I don't. I don't think he likes Israel. I don't think he likes Bibi, but I think it's even bigger than that. And it's not because I love Marco Rubio, which I do. I've been a friend of Marco Rubio dating back to his days when he won his first Senate race, and I helped him win down in Miami in 2010. I just think Marco Rubio is more professional, more ready for the job, and I think J.D. Vance does cater, at the very least, maybe not take his marching orders, but cater to bad people like Tucker Carlson, who don't like Israel or the Jews. So I'm not a big fan of J.D. Vance. I think I probably speak for most of you people in Israel when I say that, yes?
Well, J.D. Vance had multiple opportunities to state the importance of the U.S.-Israel relationship, and instead what he's done is to reinforce these almost blood libels, as some have called them, you know, that basically the U.S. is trying to, that Israel is trying to, wield foreign influence on the level of countries like Qatar or China, that they're trying to get America stuck into a forever war in Iran. Israel doesn't want a forever war in Iran. They just want the job done. Israel likes wars that are fast. But Vance has gone out on a limb here by taking the reins of responsibility for the negotiations with Iran. And I think that these negotiations are proving themselves. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio, who you mentioned, he's the one who jump-started the negotiations between Israel and Lebanon and has been brokering those negotiations, and they seem to be going very, very well, and it's a very good move for Israel.
Every time Marco Rubio speaks, I get chills. Even this morning, live from the Philippines, hours ago, very early here in the United States, he was really, really terrific. J.D. Vance speaks, I get nauseous. Him and Joe Rogan, 3 hours. Give me a break. I do want to move back to Gaza for a second, because I did hear a couple of weeks ago, maybe even last week, that there was some violence. And Hamas has still not given up their arms. They still haven't quit. Great news is there are no more hostages. That's great. They're not killing Israelis on a daily basis. But as far as I know, Hamas is still an issue, a bit of an issue, down in Gaza. Is that true?
Hamas is still an issue. Gaza as a whole is an issue. The question is, will there be any rebuilding inside Gaza if the condition for that has been the full disarmament of Hamas and having another system of governance there that's not Hamas? Meanwhile, you don't have it. Hamas doesn't want to lay down their arms, but we have to see whether there's going to be pressure from the United States or the international community to start to get money in there for rebuilding if there's no disarmament and if there's no commitment to de-radicalizing the society.
Two more. This low-life mayor of ours, he goes, Israel, they bomb hospitals and they bomb little children. They do all these things. And anybody who's followed this closely, who's not an anti-Semite, who knows better than Israel is committing genocide, they know that in those few instances where those things have happened, why have they happened, Alex? Well, you know why. Hamas purposely sets up their operations in hospitals, in kindergartens, in places where if, in fact, the Israelis come to kill them, which we will kill every one of them. When I say we, I'm America first, but I still love Israel, okay? So you will kill every one of them, and if it means you have to go into one of those very, very tough places, they're going to do it. But that's not the Israelis' fault that Hamas puts up their leadership in places where little kids can die. How is that Israel's fault?
This was the Hamas strategy from day one, and you see it playing out in New York City when a mayor like Zoran Mamdani says that he's going to try to figure out a way to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu because the ICC, the International Criminal Court, put out a warrant for his arrest for war crimes, right? So when Hamas puts themselves in the hospital and then Israel goes into the hospital, they claim that Israelis kill people in the hospital. 10 days into the war, there was the claim that Israel bombed the hospital and killed 500 people. The only problem was that Israel didn't do it. It was an errant Islamic Jihad rocket that landed not in the hospital, in the parking lot of the hospital, and close to midnight, and not 500 people died. But that is the headlines. And if you even search that on Google right now, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of headlines about the time that Israel bombed the hospital and killed 500 people. And then you have the International Criminal Court issuing arrest warrants. And then you have the mayor of New York saying that he wants to arrest the prime minister of Israel.
It's like January 6th here. You hear people, and Howard Stern said this. Stephen A. Smith, he's a friend of mine, he said this. All these cops that were killed on January 6th. The problem is there wasn't one. Not even one. The guy Brian died the next day. But it doesn't stop these people because they've got an agenda from saying all this stuff. That's just not true. There's been as many conspiracy theories about January 6th as there has been about Israel and Hamas. Finally, I did end the conversation with Bibi here last week, asking him about his confidence about being reelected with the upcoming fall elections. And he said, listen, Sid, I'm going to be here, but I go into every election thinking I'm going to lose. I refuse to be complacent. I go in thinking I'm going to lose. But if you're asking me honestly, like he told Mark Levin, do I think I'm going to be here for a while? The answer is yes. What do you think?
Well, there's still a lot of Israelis that think that he remains the man of our time. I spoke recently to a very senior Israeli official, and he told me, God help Israel if somebody else is the one managing the relationship with Trump. Everybody knows, how Trump can swing this way or that, how he can say this or that. Netanyahu knows Trump better than any world leader. He has studied him. He understands him. He knows how to work with him, how to get things done. And there's a lot of people here that think that this is still Bibi's moment, even though it's been about 20 years, and even though an equal number of people, maybe more, think that Netanyahu has seen his day already, and they want to give way to better leadership. The only problem is we haven't yet seen what better leadership can look like.
Michael Rappaport is listening. He sends his regards. You want to say hello?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Regards to Michael. I had the great privilege of interviewing him in Jerusalem, and it was a very, very special moment that we had together. I also bumped into him on the streets of New York as well. So, hi, Michael, and you got a great crew of friends over there in New York City, Sid.
He's a great guy. He is, absolutely. And we all love you, Alex Traiman. You really are a hero. JNS.org is the best. Any news you need on Israel, whether it's the war or the economy, the election, it doesn't matter. Nobody does it better than Alex and JNS.org. Alex, I love you. Thank you so much.
Sid, I love you too. Thank you so much.
My man. Alex Traiman, live in Jerusalem. And yes, Mamdani Bibi is a big story there as well.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?